mention this myself at the start here because my next guest, you and I both know, he'll have something to say about it. I was really honoured today to have been appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia in the Queen's birthday list. The fact that it was on the Queen's birthday was particularly special to me. I think she's an exemplary life to follow and to emulate. And it's an honour I owe to a lot of wonderful staff I work with in my 16 years in federal politics, particularly those who did the hard years in opposition and the frontline staff working in marginal seat offices for the Liberal Party and the National Party right around the country. A lot of thanks to my family and friends. They've ridden every up and down, the highs and lows of politics and media, particularly my dear mum and my husband of 19 years this year. You better not forget Brian Loughnane. Lots of wonderful ministers I was lucky to serve: Kay Patterson, Richard Alston, Robert Hill, Helen Coonan, and in the opposition years, the very wonderful man, Dr Brendan Nelson. Later, of course, you know him, I know him, Opposition Leader and Prime Minister Tony Abbott. All of them gave me an enormous opportunity and believed in me. There's something really special about an award like this. You don't really understand it, I think, until you see your name there on the list. And I love, perhaps most of all today, that it's something I've shared with my family. I think they've been my greatest supporters, and I was particularly touched by their reaction. Lots of people have known me, a lot of school friends, you're all watching tonight. I wouldn't be here without you and good teachers and all of that. But most importantly, now that I'm in the media, your support, my audience, you have my back. You watch each night and you are as interested in the issues confronting our country as I am. Let me just say, we have only just begun. All right? That is enough of all of that. Let's bring in my very good friend and a fellow AO himself, the master broadcaster, Alan Jones. Well, they say it's humbling, but it is.
Excuse me, that is not finished. Now, you can ask the questions. I'm going to have something to say. This lady who's been appropriately honoured today has had a living hell. People out there understand the kind of rubbish this woman of immense talent, and I've told you about this from day one when you didn't really know her, immense talent, and she piloted with Tony Abbott unprecedented success in electoral terms. 25 seats they won from the Labor Party. It's never been done in the history of Australian politics, and it'll never be done again. And on the one hand, you had this man of vaulting intellect, Abbott, and fierce determination, but behind this woman whom you've now got to know, and Australia's got to know, of equally outstanding intellect, an extraordinary capacity for hard work, a wonderful sense of femininity. She's never surrendered any of that in anything that she's done. And what pleased me about the award today is that Australia now understand this person as they never did. So, Peter, out there, I can hear a lot of people cheering, but my God, you've worked very hard and you've taken a lot of rubbish to get to this point, but the road has turned, and that pleases us all. So congratulations. We'll sort of drink something somewhere sometime when they stop all these stupid lockdowns, but I know you'll enjoy the day.
You've always been in my corner, Alan Jones. Thank you for that. I want to make one more mention before I go into something else. It was interesting, the Governor-General's release today said it was the highest number of women in history to be recipients, 44%. There wasn't a quota in sight. Every one of those 44 women, me included, we know we were recognised on our merit, and that's because a lot of campaigning's done by the chairman, Shane Stone, of the council, to really get women nominated. If you don't put your hand up, if someone doesn't nominate you, it's like running for Parliament. You're never going to get there unless you run a pre-selection. But I tell you what, I have to be honest, I would have felt differently accepting this award if I was just part of a quota. And I think that in its very essence is how we women feel about this.
And I think there was another factor today too, which really pleased us all, and that is the commitment of those handing out these awards to people who've given genuine, selfless service. That is, nothing in it for them, but for their country. And we've sort of seen people at the front line of bushfires and floods and drought and coronavirus, and people working endless hours, as you in fact did when you worked for a Prime Minister. There was no overtime or anything of that kind. And there are so many people acknowledged today who've given selfless service to the country. And I just say to people, get a hold of the list and just read these people's names and familiarise yourself with who they are, because I think it's one of the finest lists we've ever produced. It's gone to people who have genuinely served and not counted the cost.
All right, and go to my web page later on this week. I'm going to give everybody a link to. You will know people who haven't been recognised in your community, and I want to encourage you, as Ellen and I do, to go out there and bang the drum and get people nominated.
Absolutely.
All right, I think you and I perhaps owe the former UK Prime Minister Theresa May a bit of an apology. A lot of grief we gave her over Brexit. I think neither of us have changed our mind there. But have a listen to this speech she gave in the Commons the other day on COVID.
We will not eradicate COVID-19 from the UK. There will not be a time when we can say that there will never be another case of COVID-19 in this country. Secondly, variants will keep on coming. There will be new variants every year. If the government's position is that we cannot open up travel until there are no new variants elsewhere in the world, then we will never be able to travel abroad ever again. And the third fact that the government needs to state much more clearly is that, sadly, people will die from COVID here in the UK in the future, as 10 to 20,000 people do every year from flu.
Well, she's found a bit of backbone.
Well, look, Peter, I've always been a Theresa May supporter. I just think, unfortunately, she was overwhelmed by the bureaucracy. And, of course, the Lancaster House speech over Brexit was the right speech. They then went to a whole range of other meetings and words were put into her mouth, and she foolishly yielded to those, and that got her into a mess. But I'm thinking of her in a previous environment, in previous ministries. She was a very effective and efficient woman. And to still stay on as an ex-Prime Minister and make that kind of contribution, she's 1,000% correct. And she basically said, look, if vaccination isn't the counterpoint to lockdown and to international borders, then we'll never, ever leave our country. And I thought there's a lesson there for everybody. I think we've got to wake up. Lockdowns are yesterday's world, even if they were valid then, and I don't think they were, but if they were valid then. But I think Theresa May, outstanding speech in the Parliament. Yeah, I agree with you.
Do you think we're going to get a free trade agreement done in the next couple of days with Boris Johnson?
Oh, gee whiz. What's happened to Boris? I mean, he's gone mad. I mean, this notion that you can't have a free trade agreement unless you meet a whole heap of criteria about climate change. Now, whether or not you agree with Paris, the reality is governments themselves are responsible for this whole business about carbon dioxide emissions. And to suddenly tie all this to trade and exporters and people who grow beef and cattle and wine and whatever, I just think it's absurd. I don't think we should be signing any free trade agreement if it's tied into a whole lot of nefarious climate change criteria and conditions. And that appears to be where we are. Dan Tehan's got a real fight on his hands, I think.
I'm with you 200%. Perhaps it's the Green left wife that's, influencing him. I don't know. He's certainly become a convert in recent years. Alan Jones, very special to have you on the show tonight of all nights.
Day.
I'll watch you later on at 6.
All right, Peter. Have a great night. Peter Credlin. Wonderful.
All right.